Okay guys, now let's see the constitutional provisions. So starting with Article 246 of the Constitution. Subject matter of laws made by Parliament and by the legislatures of states. Which laws can be made by the Parliament and which laws can be made by the state legislatures. So it says, notwithstanding anything contained in Clause 2, Parliament has exclusive powers to make laws with respect to any of the matters enumerated in List 1 of the 7th schedule. So this is also called as a union list. So this we'll see later. There are big lists, but we'll not see the whole list. We'll see only the taxation provisions of these lists. Okay. So 7th schedule to the Constitution gives 3 lists. List 1 is called as the union list, which gives the powers of the Parliament, yani central government. Then list 2 is the state list, which gives the powers of the state government, and the 3rd list is called as the concurrent list, which gives powers of the both central as well as state. Then second says, Parliament and subject to clause 1, the legislature of state also have power to make laws with respect to any of the matters enumerated in list 3. So therefore list 3 is called as the concurrent list. It gives powers of both the central and state. Means these things can be done by the central government as well as by the state government. Both can do it. And Parliament has power to make laws with respect to any matter for any part of the territory of India not included in a state, notwithstanding that such matter is a matter enumerated in state list. Now this is an interesting point, that if there is some area which is not covered in any of the states. Now this can happen. Now where this is, I don't know in practical sense, but there is India. It's a big thing. Now this is not the diagram of India. I'm not good at geographical diagrams, but say if this is India. Now this is one state, this is another state, this is the 3rd state, this is the 4th state, this is the 5th state. So normally the state boundaries are there, but sometime what happens is that after the boundary of this state and the boundary of this state, there is some leftover area. There may be. I'm not saying it will always be, but there may be. Talk about some islands. Now those islands are neither covered by any state, means not covered by this state as well as that state. There can be small islands somewhere. So who will make laws for that place? Which laws will apply there? So it says the Parliament. Parliament will have the power to make laws in those places for the purposes which are given in state list. Like for example, sales tax is governed by state list, was governed by state list, still governed for alcohol. But if the area is not covered by any state, then who will make the laws there in respect of matters which are given in state list? The central government. So all this area which is not governed by any state, who will make laws for these areas for matters governed by state list? The central government. Okay. The next is 254. Inconsistency between laws made by Parliament and laws made by the legislature of states. Okay, now some student will ask me a question, sir, is any question going to come here in the exam? I would say no. You don't expect questions on these articles of Constitution. We don't have Constitution as a subject, but these are for general knowledge. Okay, so just take general knowledge. That's it. Don't try to mug up all these provisions of the Constitution. Okay. Okay, so let's see. If any provision of law made by legislature of state is repugnant to any provision of law made by the Parliament, means there is a conflict between the state and the Parliament. Which Parliament is competent to enact? Which Parliament is competent to enact? Or to any provision of an existing law with respect to one or more matters enumerated in concurrent list. See, basically the conflict will arise in case of concurrent list only, because as far as the state list is concerned, the state can make laws, Parliament cannot make laws, so there cannot be conflict. In case of list 1, the parliament can only make law, the state cannot make law. So again there will be no conflict. Conflict will arise only in case of concurrent list, where the central government and the state government both have made the laws, and if there is any inconsistency between them, then what will happen? Let's see. Subject to provisions of clause 2 that we'll see below this, the law made by parliament, whether passed before or after the law made by the legislature of state, means whichever can be earlier and whichever can be later. Parliament law can be earlier one or the later one, irrespective of that. Or as the case may be, the existing law shall prevail and the law made by legislature of the state shall to the extent of repugnancy be void. Means in case of conflicting matters, the law made by parliament and law made by state legislatures, if there is a conflict between them, then the law made by parliament will prevail. Or the existing law means the existing law made by the parliament earlier on, and now the state has made something which is repugnant, means which is conflicting. So the state law will not prevail, the parliament law or the existing law, old law, will prevail. So that is the first point. Simple. Parliament will override state legislature in simple words. Whether the law passed by parliament is before or after, that doesn't make any difference. But this is subject to clause 2. Okay. So this is clause 1, but this is subject to clause 2. So let's go and see what is clause 2. Clause 2 will override clause 1. So clause 2 says that where the law made by the legislature of state with respect to one or more matters enumerated in concurrent list contains any provision repugnant to the provisions of an earlier law made by parliament or an existing law with respect to that matter, then the law so made by the legislature of such state shall, if it has been reserved, now this is the important point, it has been reserved for the consideration of the president and has received his assent, prevail in that state. Means if president has given his assent to that particular point, like central government may have made a different law, state wants to differ, state wants to differ on some point, state wants to differ, they want to make something else, a different kind of law. So in that case what they can do is they can take special permission from president. So they will reserve it that this part will come into effect only if president signs it, gives his assent. And if the president's assent has been taken for that, then the state law will override the parliament law to that extent, to the extent of repugnancy and inconsistency, contradiction. Okay, so that is the way the state can override the central law. How? By taking special approval from president. But this will happen only when the parliament law has been passed before. Parliament law is old and the state is passing a new law. They are enacting a new law and they have taken the assent of president, which clearly states that this is different from the parliament law. Please give us the consent. And if president gives the consent, then state can have its own law, which is different from the parliament law. Okay. But the proviso says, provided that nothing in this clause shall prevent, nothing in this clause shall prevent means parliament is not prevented, means parliament is allowed from enacting at any time any law with respect to the same matter, including a law adding to, amending, varying or repealing the law so made by the legislature of the state. Means ultimately the parliament will have upper hand. So parliament had one law, the old law, state legislature took special permission of the president and made a different law. Now that is going on in that particular state, no problem. But later on, if the parliament feels that no, the state law shouldn't apply differently, so parliament will have the power, it always has the power to amend the law made by the state. So they can later on amend it, vary it, modify it, or even repeal that law which was made by the state legislature. Means who will be the king at all times? the parliament. Parliament is the king and state legislature is the queen. So sometimes queen may have a different way. They can take permission of the president and they can have a different way. But if the king feels that no, this shouldn't happen, that it can intervene and cancel out that permission of the state. So that was an interesting article. Then moving ahead, Article 246A, now this is the main one, special provision with respect to goods and service tax. After Constitution 101st Amendment Act of 2016. So earlier the GST, the power to levy GST was not given in the Constitution. It's a new concept. So the Constitution had to be amended. Okay. So 101st Amendment Act was passed in 2016. Notwithstanding anything contained in Article 246 and 254, which we just saw, Parliament and subject to clause 2 the legislature of state. Parliament and legislature of state means both have the power to impose GST, because that is what we have seen in the first lecture. GST can be imposed by central as well as state. Have power, so both will have power to make laws with respect to goods and service tax imposed by the union or by such state. And Parliament has exclusive power to make laws with respect to goods and service tax where the supply of goods or service or both takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. This also we had seen. For interstate you apply IGST, but for intrastate, so one will apply to intrastate, two will apply to interstate. So in interstate only the Parliament will have exclusive rights, so IGST is made by Parliament. But for intrastate both of them will make laws, the central and the state. So therefore we have two, CGST and SGST. Very simple. And the provisions of this article shall in respect of goods and service tax referred to under 279(5) take effect from the date recommended by the Goods and Service Tax Council. So that is of no use. Then 269A, this was also amended. What it says? Goods and service tax on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce. So this is regarding segregation of the tax collected. The tax which is collected on interstate transaction in the name of IGST. Right? So it is collected by the central government, no doubt. But will it belong to the central government fully? Will the money belong to the central government? No. It has to be divided among the central and the state. So how will it be divided? That is given here. So it says GST on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce shall be levied and collected by the government of India, that is central government, and such tax shall be apportioned between the union and the states in the manner as may be provided by the Parliament by law on recommendation of the Council. So Parliament will make a law for segregating this amount. And for the purpose of this clause, supply of goods or service or both in the course of import into the territory of India shall be deemed to be supply of goods or service or both in the course of interstate trade or commerce. Import will also be considered as interstate. Therefore, import is also chargeable at IGST. Import transactions are not chargeable to CGST, SGST. Import is considered as interstate. Then the amount apportioned to the state under clause 1 shall not form part of consolidated fund of India. Means this is the total amount collected. Out of that, if this portion goes to state, then this will not form part of consolidated fund of India. Consolidated fund of India means the amount belonging to the central government. So only this remaining amount will go to consolidated fund and this amount will go to state fund. Then where an amount collected as tax levied under 1 has been used for payment of tax levied by state has been used for payment of tax levied by state under 246A, such amount shall not form part of consolidated fund of India. Now this is an interesting point. Now here you have to understand a little bit of ITC, input tax credit. Okay. So let me tell you. Has been used. Now see these words first and then I'll give you an example. Has been used. The amount collected under clause 1. Amount collected under clause 1 is the IGST. So IGST which has been collected has been used for payment of tax levied by state, means SGST. Means if the credit of IGST has been adjusted against SGST, the credit of IGST, if I purchase some goods in the course of interstate trade, then IGST comes, I take credit of that, and my output is local, so I pay CGST and SGST out of it. So I use portion of IGST to pay SGST. So that much which is used here will not form part of consolidated fund of India. It will not belong to the central government. It will have to be transferred to the state government. That part of the money is transferred to the state government. So let me take an example and tell you how this is happening. Here is a person, a supplier, in say Pune, Maharashtra. Okay. Now his inputs come from Punjab. So when the inputs are coming from outside the state, what happens is that there is IGST applicable on them. So if say IGST is 100 rupees. Okay, IGST is 100 rupees. It comes to him. Now he makes supply intrastate. So when he makes intrastate supply, the outward supply, he has to pay CGST and SGST. So suppose his CGST is 60 and SGST is also 60, means total he has to pay 120. So what he does, this is the credit available to him, so he can set off this credit. So the rules of set off are that first we'll set off IGST against CGST. So 60 rupees will set off here, and the balance 40 which is left will be set off here. So this 60 minus 60 will become nil. Your output liability is nil, and this 60 minus 40, because credit is 100 only, so I can set off 60 and 40. So this 40 will be set off here, and the balance 20 will be payable. So total payable amount will be 20. Okay. Now the point is that this is happening. Now who has collected this amount? This was collected by central government, right? 100 rupees was collected by central government. But out of this 100 rupees, forget it. It was collected by central government. Very good. Now this 60 rupees was the amount collectible by the state government of Maharashtra, right? The 60 rupees belong to Maharashtra government, right? The 60 rupees belongs to Maharashtra government. But the law says that this 100 can be set off there. So out of 140 which is left, you are setting off there. So Maharashtra government recovers only 20 rupees. So who is losing out? Maharashtra government is losing out. This amount was collected by central government, but the sufferer is the Maharashtra government, because Maharashtra government has to set off 40 rupees out of its collectible amount. Maharashtra government should have recovered 60. They should have got 60 rupees in their hands, but because of 40 set off, they are getting only 20. So who is at a loss? The Maharashtra government is at a loss. So will Maharashtra government allow this? They will allow set off of the amount that was not collected by them? No. But if they don't allow, then the system will fail. So the credit is allowed, the set off is allowed from customer's point of view, but at the back end, the central government which has collected this 100 rupees will transfer 40 rupees to Maharashtra government. So this 40 which is set off here by the supplier results in a loss to Maharashtra government. So that 40 rupees which is set off here out of IGST will be paid over by the central government to Maharashtra government. Understood? So out of this amount, 140 rupees is transferred to Maharashtra government. Therefore, it is given here that out of this 100, only 60 will be transferred to Consolidated Fund of India. 40 rupees will not be credited to Consolidated Fund of India. It will be transferred to Maharashtra government. So this 40 which is set off here will be transferred here. So these monetary transactions which will keep happening behind the scene. So at the front end, we the suppliers will be taking credit and setting it off, and at the back end, the government will keep transferring amounts or receiving amounts. Okay, so that was the third point. Then fourth says that where an amount collected as tax levied by state, now the reverse thing, levied by state under 246A has been used for payment of tax levied under 1, means the state GST SGST is used to pay IGST. The credit of SGST is used to pay IGST. Then what will happen? Such amount shall not form part of consolidated fund of the state. So the reverse thing. Then what happens? It will not form part of the state fund because state will have to transfer that much amount to the central government. It will have to transfer that much amount to the central government. So exactly reverse will happen. Reverse of 3. Then Parliament may by law formulate the principles for determining the place of supply. So this we are going to study in detail. And when supply of goods or service or both takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce, this also we will see. So the laws prescribe both these points. What is the place of supply and what is interstate trade or commerce. So we will study these points in detail. Then there is Article 279A also. This is regarding the GST Council. GST Council plays a very major role in the formation of the laws, the GST laws, as well as the implementation. And this is very important because that is the connecting thing amongst all the center and the state governments. Because we have got one central government and so many state governments, 29 states and union territories and so on and so forth. How they will come on the same plane? Can there be agreement among so many people and government people? Impossible. So that task is done by the council. So council has representation of all the states and the central government. And the job of the council is to come to a consensus in terms of making the laws and implementing the laws. So that is this GST Council. Let's see. It says the President shall within 60 days from the date of commencement of the Amendment Act, Constitution Amendment Act, by order constitute a council to be called as GST Council, which has already been formed. The council shall consist of the following members. The Union Finance Minister as the chairperson. The Union Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, right now is the chairperson of this council. Then Union Minister of State in charge of Revenue or Finance as a member. So the Union Finance Minister Arun Jaitley also has a Minister of State. I don't know his name right now, but there is a Minister of State. So he will also be a member. Then the Minister in charge of Finance, Finance Minister or Taxation Minister or any other minister nominated by each state government as member. So all the states will have one nominee on this council. Everyone. So normally the finance ministers. So the finance ministers of all the states become members of the GST Council. Then the members of the council referred to under C of 2 shall as soon as may be choose one amongst themselves to be the vice chairman, vice chairperson of the council for such period as they may decide. Means now see, there are A, B and C, 3 points are there. So A and B, these two people are of the central government. C is of the state governments. So these 29 state finance ministers will choose one among themselves to be the vice chairperson. Okay. Then the Goods and Services Tax Council shall make recommendations to the union and the states on. Now this is important. Here a question may come. What is the role of the council? What is the role of the council? Or what are the functions of the council? Or what are the important decisions made by the council? So you will write clause 4. So what it says? Council shall make recommendations to the union and the state on the taxes, the cesses and surcharges levied by the union, the state and the local bodies which may be subsumed. Means which taxes should be subsumed. So this is one recommendation which they made and which has been implemented. Then goods and service tax that may be subjected to or exempted from goods and service tax. On which goods and service the tax should be imposed and which should be exempted. That is means even the exemptions are recommended by the council. Then model goods and service tax laws, model GST Act, principles of levy, apportionment in the course of interstate and so on and so forth, and principles governing the place of supply. Then threshold limit of turnover below which the goods and service tax may be exempted from goods and service tax. So which has been set as 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs respectively. 10 lakh for special category states and 20 lakh for the other places. So that is called as threshold limit. So this is also decided by the council. Right now it is 20 lakh, then it may change in future. Then the rates including floor rates with band of goods and service tax. The rates will be decided by the council. And the special rate or rates for specified period to raise additional resources during the natural calamity or disasters. If such a thing happens and there is a need for extra resources, then some additional taxes can also be levied. How much? That will be decided by the council. Then special provisions with respect to states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. So these are called as those special states, special category states. These are called as special category states, and different provisions can be made. Some special provisions can be made for these states. And any other matter relating to goods and service tax as the council may decide. Open clause, general power. Then the GST Council shall recommend the date on which the goods and service tax shall be levied on petroleum products. Petroleum products are not covered by GST right now, but council may recommend later on a date from which these products will be brought in the GST net. So petroleum crude, high speed diesel, motor spirit, that is petrol, natural gas and aviation turbine fuel. Then while discharging the functions conferred by this article, the Goods and Services Council shall be guided by the need for a harmonized structure of goods and service tax and for the development of harmonized national market for goods and services. That's fine. Then 1/2 of the total number of members shall constitute quorum at its meetings. Means at any meeting at least half of the members should be present to form quorum. Quorum will be half, 50%. Then the Goods and Services Council shall determine the procedure in performance of its functions. They will decide their own procedure, how to say it, when to decide, what to do. And every decision of the council shall be taken at a meeting by majority of not less than 3/4 of the weighted votes of the members present and voting, in accordance with the following principles. Namely, the vote of the central government shall have weightage of 1/3 of the total votes cast. The central government vote will be 1/3, and the votes of all the states taken together shall have a weightage of 2/3 of the total votes cast in that meeting. So there is a weightage. It's not like central government has one member so one vote. It's not one member one vote. The central government, that is represented by the Union Finance Minister, his vote will count 1/3, 33.33%. and all the state votes will be counted as 2/3, and then you will take the weighted votes, and then the majority will be seen of not less than 3/4. So passing will be by 3/4, means 75% in favor should be there. Out of total votes cast, 75% should be in favor. If that is so, then the resolution is passed. Then no act or proceeding of the council shall be invalid. No act shall be invalid means it shall be valid merely by reason of any vacancy in or defect in constitution of the council. Suppose there is a defect in constitution. So can somebody tomorrow stand up and say that all the decisions by the council were wrong? They should be scrapped? No. So even though there is a defect, even though there is vacancy, one of the finance minister has died, or one of the finance minister could not come, that doesn't make any difference. Vacancies and defect doesn't make difference. Decision is decision. It is final. Secondly, any defect in the apportionment of a person as a member of the council, appointment of person as a member, or any procedural irregularity of the council not affecting the merits of the case. Procedural irregularities are always condonable, pardonable. There are two things, law and procedures. Law cannot be diluted, but procedures can be diluted. Like for example, the meeting was not called properly, the quorum was not there properly, and so on and so on. These are procedural irregularities. There was defect in giving the notice. These can be condoned on merits of the case. Then Goods and Services Council shall establish a mechanism to adjudicate any dispute between the Government of India and one or more states, or between the Government of India and any state or states on one side and one or more states on the other side. Means there is a conflict between states, or there is conflict between center and state, or khichdi amongst them. Then council will set up a mechanism to resolve these disputes. And then that illustration is given of the weighted average, 33% and 66%, so you just have to go to it. That's a simple thing. Then constitutional authority to levy the indirect tax. So now we have seen all the constitutional provisions, so this is very simple. List are given there, union list, state list, concurrent list, and some examples are given there. Like in union list you have entry number 83, which covers customs, which is still relevant. Entry number 84 is regarding duty of excise, which is still relevant on these items, the petroleum products basically, which are not yet covered by GST. But once they are also covered by GST, then entry number 84 will have no meaning. Then these two were deleted, 92 and 92C were deleted because this was on service, and now all services are covered by GST, so they were deleted. And any other matter, residual clause. Similarly, in state list, entertainment tax, lottery, betting, gambling, property tax, excise duty, these are examples. Most of them are now covered by GST. But they are not deleted as yet, because there are some goods on which still these taxes are charged, like state excise. On alcohol, the state excise is still there. It is not deleted. Property tax is still there. And so on and so forth. Passenger tax, toll tax, stamp duties, these are still there. So that you have to read once. And then there is a point of compensation to state for loss of revenue on account of GST. If the states which were collecting say 1000 crores earlier lose revenue because of GST, then center will compensate them. So that is a simple thing. No need to study. And transitional provisions are given at the last. Then notwithstanding anything, the act, any provision of any law relating to tax on goods or service or both in force in a state immediately before the commencement of this act, means we are talking about the excise, the sales tax, which is inconsistent with the provisions of constitution as amended by the act, shall continue to be in force until amended or repealed by a competent legislature or other competent authority, or until expiration of 1 year from such commencement, whichever is earlier. Means this governments will now have to repeal their old acts, but unless repealed they will continue to be in force at least up to 1 year. And power of president to remove difficulties. No need to study. If any difficulty arises,